Hestia, aka Vesta, goddess of the hearth, home, and hospitality. Hestia, in the high dwellings of all, both deathless gods and men who walk on earth, you have gained an everlasting abode and highest honor. Glorious is your portion and your right, for without you mortals hold no banquet, where one does not duly pour sweet wine in offering to Hestia both first and last. A Homeric hymn to Hestia. The Vestal Virgin's main concern in life was to care for the circular temples of Vesta, to keep the altar fire eternally burning for the welfare of the empire, and to teach the next generation of Vestals. These girls and women dedicated their lives to the goddess Vesta. I would venture to say that they are among the first performance artists of the Western world. Initially, there were only 4 active Vestals in a temple. Later, their numbers increased to 6. They were under the authority of the head of the Priests' College, the Pontifex Maximus, who would elect new Vestals as the need arose. In 380 to 394 of the current era, the cult of Vesta was brought to a sudden end when the sacred fire was put out and the priestesses disbanded by the Byzantine Emperor Theodosius. The Roman goddess Vesta was known simultaneously as a Greek deity by the name of Hestia. It is thought that both cultures worshipped her independently of one another in ancient times. To the Greeks, she was on equal footing with Zeus, his eldest sister, and one of the 3 virgin goddesses in the pantheon. Apollo and Poseidon vied for her attention, according to the Homeric hymn to Hestia, and so, since Hestia desired to avoid a feud between the two, she swore that she would never take a lover. Zeus was grateful for her desire for pacifism, and so he made her the most important of all goddesses in the lives of man, the central figure of the mortal home. Hestia's altar was always the fireplace and hearth of every home, and newborns were walked around in a circle around the hearth, making it clear to Hestia that this was a new member of the family. No visitors to her temple could be turned away, for it might anger Hestia, who was also the goddess of hospitality. The necessity for fire to be brought from another source to the communal hearth is thought to have been the roots of the worship of the Roman goddess Vesta. The original source of all fire was believed to have been Troy. Eventually, every Latin state had a temple hearth dedicated to Vesta, so as to strengthen the Roman Empire. The deity Penates, who ruled affairs of the state, partnered with Vesta in keeping the empire secure. Official religious rites of inauguration took place in Vesta's temple at Lanuvium. It was there that leaders sacrificed offerings before taking office. All of the Latin cities had fires tended by virgin priestesses in the name of Vesta. In Rome, there was the massive Atrium Vestae near the Forum and at the base of the Palatine, and directly on the Via Nova. Its many statues and inscriptions, the majority of which date from the 4th century give great detail of the publicly held services in honor of Vesta. It is thought that the round shape of the temple space itself originates from the ancient leaders' huts, whose fires would need to be tended by the leaders' daughters so people of the tribe could get fire as needed. In early Rome, as homes became larger, Vesta's altar of the Hearth could be found in the central atrium for the family's private worship. By the waning years of the Roman Empire, the area in Rome known as the Atrium Vestae was the living quarters for the Vestal priestesses. However, at its peak, its presence encompassed an entire precinct of Rome. The best part of town at the height of the Roman Empire included the Temple of Vesta and the dwelling of the Vestals, of course, but also other VIP building complexes that surrounded the Vestal Temple. The temple initially had a massive sacred grove at the base of the Palatine, the major flat-top hill of Rome, but in later aeons, the grove gradually disappeared due to urban encroachment. The Domus Publica, or official home of the head of the College of Priests and the supervisor of the Vestals, the Pontifex Maximus, lived there until 12 BCE. That year, Augustus built a new Domus Publica on the Palatine and presented the original Domus Publica to the Vestals with great ceremony. Finally, the Regia, house of the ruler king, was located there until it was relocated in 36 BC. In fact, the two terms for that area of Rome, Regia and Atrium Vestae, were interchangeable for a while. The atrium itself, the main portion of the actual temple to Vesta, was large enough to hold the Senate. The discovery of the Atrium Vestae took place as early as 1549, though the major excavation work was not carried out until 1883 and 1899 to 1902. The earliest remains date from the 2nd century BCE. The temple itself contains no statue of the goddess, perhaps a testament to domestic modesty, though there is a large podium at the entrance to the atrium where it is believed there was probably a statue housed at one point. There is also a prominent entablature documenting Hadrian's significant additions to the temple. The complex was most likely damaged during the fire of Nero, and it is known that it was rebuilt by him afterwards when he redesigned the entire complex, making an enclosure that was trapezoidal in shape, had small tabernae rooms on 3 sides, and excluded the garden but rather encompassed the temple. Domitian had added a colonnade west end and court to the structure eventually. Hadrian's additions caused problems in that they cut off sunlight from the structure by building 2nd and 3rd floors, and so increased dampness in the structure. During Commodus's reign, the temple building once again faced fire and was rebuilt by Julia Domna, who lengthened a smaller courtyard significantly, although minor additions continued even during the reign of Constantine. To promote her patronage of the Vestals, Julia Domna, the wife of Septimus Severus, is portrayed on a coin which features a sacrifice to Vesta with the temple in the background, 4 Vestals and 2 children in attendance on one side, and her bust is on the reverse. There were also coins struck featuring the bust of the goddess Vesta herself. The central court was walled in numerous times, encompassing the temple complex with a colonnade and later a brick wall with arches. Within the courtyard stood many statues of the Virgins Vestals Maximi on ascribed pedestals. Among the treasures in the Atrium Vestae was a hall of fine marble, a vaulted cellar, a Republican period archaic age altar, and many finely decorated rooms. A few rooms are not accessible by way of the courtyard, and it is believed that these were used for worship of the fertility cult of the Lares. 2 stashes of coins were found during the excavation of the house. 830 Saxon coins from the mid-10th century, found in 1883, and 397 gold coins from 335 to 472 CE, which were found in 1899. A Greek idealized bust of Numa, second king of Rome and founder of Roman pagan religion, made during the 5th century BCE and supplied with space for a bronze beard, was found in the house of the Vestals. The body type suggests that it was created later and belongs to the reign of Trajan, who ruled from 211 to 224 BCE. It also shows evidence of the rite of resectio, an obscure term associated with both a festival on the 25th of July, the celebration of Furinalia, a goddess of springs, known as a nymphi, and with a surgical practice similar to a hysterectomy. The Vestals were recruited at childhood, around the age of 7, and usually came from patrician homes. They spent their first 10 years of service learning, the next 10 performing their duties as priestesses, and the last 10 as teachers to the next generation of Vestals. After 30 years of chaste service to Vesta, they could leave the temple and marry. The Vestals were consulted on matters of state even after they returned to civilian life. The Vestals had to remain chaste on punishment of being buried alive. It was said that the fire at the temple would go out if one of the Vestals had been deceitful. However, the Vestals enjoyed greater independence and higher self-esteem than almost any other women of their time. The impact of the Vestals' political, societal, and religious influence is certainly indicative of the significance of women's growing influence within Western civilization. And with that, I bid you adieu from Hestia and Vesta both, and I hope that you get to visit their temples very, very soon. Thank you for tuning in to Mystic Ashram with me. Many blessings.